What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Aftersound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day, except when I'm traveling, because it's been tough. But I appreciate the patience, and it's been good to decompress and get away for a little bit. And I know I've missed some crazy stuff, such as what we're going to get into today, which is, I would say, rather spicy from what I've read from the community so far. But yeah, let's go ahead and just jump right into it. Now, this is the upcoming SPS governance proposal, which is about adjusting the rewards based on the card level. Now, I also have Matt's kind of response to this, or more like color commentary, which is what he said, to provide additional context pulled up as well. So if we just go into this, the crux of it is that your rewards are now going to be based not just on your league and your rating and how much SPS is in the pool, but also the cards that you use. And this is in addition to whether or not those cards are starter cards. This is going to matter in terms of what level cards you have. Now, the thought behind this, and I thought both of these posts were really well written and very thoughtful. I know many people don't agree with it, but again, this is not necessarily, it's like a one step back for two steps forward is how it's being framed, both in this post as well as what Matt was talking about in his post, right? This is for long-term health of the game. And from my understanding, it's really just about how do we preserve card value and maintain solid card value over the long term, as well as trying to soak up a lot of the 1BCX cards that are out there right now. So we can jump into the math, but I would rather simplify it because I don't think it's actually that complicated. And this is more, to me, of a philosophical topic, just because it's like, how do you feel about consistent or constant changes to the rewards that we've been having really since the end of the airdrop back in July? We now are at like 3 months of many changes, and I guess you can bring this all the way back to May in terms of the rank rewards update. So we'll take a quick look at that. But before we do, we'll just jump into what the actual level of cards you will need to earn are. And at bronze, you need novice. It's kind of simple in that way, right? Where whatever league you're playing in, if you have a maxed deck for the league below, you will receive maximum rewards. So in silver, as long as you have cards maxed for bronze, and gold if you have cards maxed for silver, diamond maxed for gold, and then champion really is the only area in which you would need to have max level cards across the board in order to earn the maximum amount of rewards. So in that way, depending on what league you play in, it could be easy for you if you're already, for example, I'm in gold and I have most of my cards. I would say that I have a maxed silver deck in most cases, but I'm not maxed for gold yet, right? I'm working towards a maxed gold deck. And that may be the case for people who are in silver where they have a maxed bronze deck. Now, the thing is, there's going to be cards and outliers that you'll need to consider. But this is where, this is where we can take a step back from the math of how it's all calculated. And again, if you want to go through it, and I'm sure it's been discussed at length, and I'm sure every other content creator has already discussed it more thoroughly than I have, I'm just trying to give my thoughts on it moving forward, is the fact that this is just about how do you get people to incentivize leveling up their cards, leveling up their decks. And this is something that Matt kind of got into a little bit more, where he broke down like evaluating the problem. Is it really a problem? And then what is the solution? And is the solution actually tackling that problem? Right? And so he was saying to me, as well as many in the community, it is clear that there is little incentive currently, perhaps even disincentive, to combine cards at the lower levels, which then brings us to the second part of the question. Is that a bad thing for the ecosystem? So again, obviously, if it wasn't a bad thing for the ecosystem, then we wouldn't be having this conversation, but that is where the team, and I'm sure many in the community, might feel that is the case. Now, here's where it gets interesting, right? Because many people who are buying cards and keeping them at 1BCX are investors and not necessarily players, because I would argue that most of the people who have bought or maxed out the deck for whatever league they're trying to play in are buying a lot of these cards and keeping them at 1BCX because that is where you can preserve the value of them over time, right? So whether you want to flip them, whether you want to rent them out, whatever the case is, you want that flexibility because it's a one-way transaction. As soon as you combine the cards, you can no longer get them, you can no longer uncombine them. That's part of the charm of the system. So when it comes to that, a lot of the people who are holding 1BCX cards, I would say, are either going to be long-term investors who are collecting cards and just want to play the rental market or flip them at some point in the future, or, and this is where it gets, this is where probably the conversation is going to steer, is bots, right? You have a lot of level 1 bots, or even lower level bots that are able to make it up to the higher levels. So while bots weren't specifically targeted in the language of this or these two posts, I would say that is kind of the subtext of this, right? And again, bots aren't bad, but accounts that aren't incentivized to level up their decks are bad, is what is being said here essentially. So assessing the proposed solution, he gets into it. I don't want to read this to you guys. So again, if you have a chance, go through and check it out. One thing that I think is important to note here is something that I know people have been asking for a while, and that is some changes that are potentially coming to the team creation UI. So let me go ahead and read this part for you. So one other thing I want to just quickly is a situation where sometimes it is better to play a card at lower levels than at higher levels in certain rule sets. So for example, let's say you have a speed, a reverse speed rule set, and a card at level 1 has a speed of 1, so it's great. But as soon as you level it up, it becomes less valuable in that rule set. So one thing that they want to address with this UI is being able to choose the level at which you play a certain card. Now that is actually going to change the meta quite a bit. Not in the sense of, okay, well, these cards, everybody should have access to them, so it's not like there's going to be anything new, but there will be an adjustment period in terms of like, okay, if I want to, reverse speed rule set, I love using my level 1 Sandworm, but as these get more, as this update gets put in, am I going to be penalized for using my level 1 Sandworm in these games? And then on the flip side of that is, okay, well, if I max out my Sandworm, I know he gets to a speed of like 3 or 4, whatever. I only have a couple of BCX, so I keep it at level 1. But if he does go up there, now all of a sudden he has less value to me in the game, although maybe he has more value to me as a rewards earner, but then I don't want to play him as much in certain rule sets. So I think that this is going to be something that is actually fantastic for creating teams. It's going to be another learning curve for folks as now you need to really remember, okay, what abilities do monsters or units get at each different level, and then kind of play it from there. But again, it's not a bad thing, and I don't think it's gonna be overwhelming for most folks. It'll just be, okay, I gave you the example of Sandworm, right? But there's plenty of other units or monsters out there that will have similar kind of incentives to use at lower levels. But if you want to earn as much, you need to level them up and get them at least to the max for the lower league or the league directly below you. Now, how Matt closes this out is just, saying that this is all about long-term thinking and trying to give as much thought to preserving the value of these cards, but also making these cards hold their value over the long term, right? And it's not just about the cards, but about the ecosystem in general. Now, I already know that one of the big topics that is going to come up, or at least that I've started reading already, is we just have too many cards, right? And I think that to be fair with you, I think that there's arguments to be had or that are valid on both sides of that, right? Because if you max out all of Chaos Legion, it's not nearly enough to be, to suit the player base where it currently is. And I think Matt even gave an example of that somewhere. Here we go. So this should be a similar question. So if all 15 million Chaos Legion packs are opened, there would be approximately 1.85 million of each level 1 common card available in the game. This is unbelievably a high amount and would make the cards nearly worthless. However, if all of those cards were combined to only level 3, now keep in mind they can go all the way to level 10, but if they're combined to only level 3, which is I think 14 BCX for commons, that would reduce the total number of cards to 130,000, which is less than the current amount of daily active accounts. Now, that daily active accounts is anywhere between like 150K to 200K, and I still maintain that a majority of those is botted accounts or automated accounts, however you want to look at it, and that the real player base is probably anywhere between 20 to 30 to maybe 50,000. But the point is that there are accounts playing the game, there are accounts earning rewards, and if you look at it from this lens, it's like, okay, well, there's not enough, right? There's not enough. On the flip side, yes, for people who want to burn packs, I don't think that burning packs is the way to go. That's not how they set it out to be, which is why I'm very much against the burning of packs, even though I like to talk about it as a thought exercise, right? But what I do think is interesting is the idea of, well, in the future, and I'll probably get into this in a separate video, kind of like the time restricted nature of packs that we're seeing for both tower defense as well as GLX, which again I'll get into those in their own separate videos. But with where things are at right now, the player base combined with the bear market, everything was just not. We just got hit on so many different levels that the amount of packs, I think I agree to a certain extent, were somewhat overstated. And I know people are going to be like, oh, you're going to get all, up in arms and be like, he finally admitted it. Well, it's not, I think everybody was under the wrong impression. We didn't know how bad the bot problem was until like maybe March or April, right? Because at the end of last year, the euphoria was insane. And so I don't necessarily blame the team on getting that number wrong. And I'm not saying that they have admitted to it being wrong or having the wrong estimates. I'm just saying that we all kind of overestimated how many people were actually in the game. And more importantly, we overestimated how many people were in the game for the game itself and not to make a quick buck, right? And there's no judgment there. If you want to make a quick buck, that's fine. But as soon as the bear market hit and was in full effect, all the investors left. All the people who wanted to make a quick buck were out. And it's just like, ooh, we have a lot of cards here. We have a lot of cards, we have a lot of packs, and nobody to really soak it up because the ROI isn't really there. And sure, we've had like little pockets of that popping up, but ultimately it's been a difficult year in many ways. So, when I look at the argument that Matt provided here, and then combined with all of the other changes, one thing that I think the community has voiced, which I'll agree with to a certain extent, is, there's just so many changes. There's so many changes. You started with the ranked rewards update back in May. Then we had SPS coming in and the removal of DEC. Then we had, obviously starter cards were a big part of the ranked rewards. And it's just been one thing after another. And then most recently we've had, the rewards really filter up to the top. So I can understand players from, bronze, silver level feeling like things got nerfed. I mean, things got nerfed for me in gold, right? I'm not earning nearly as much as I used to. But when I look at this from the long-term perspective and just being fully objective here with you guys, at the end of the day, this is very much in line with two things that I think are important to this game. It's in line with investments, and it's in line with the way that esports work, and just games in general, or sports in general work. Okay, so the investment side of it is the more you invest, the more you should get out of your return, right? So therefore, if you're investing very little, your returns should technically be very little. And if you've been on this channel, you've heard me talk about the Apple stock analogy before, right? Like if you buy 1 share of Apple stock, you're going to get X amount in dividends. If you buy 1,000 shares of Apple stocks, you're going to get 1,000x that amount of dividends, and you'll be able to reinvest, compound more quickly, right? That's the beauty of compound interest. And I think it was Einstein who said compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. So that's going to be the case no matter if this is a game or if this is Apple stock or if it's another crypto. Like whatever the case is, that is really how it should be designed, I should say. And so I'm not opposed to it from that metric. Now, should the numbers be tweaked? I'm still open to that, and I still think like a 20% across the board is okay, but we seem to have moved far beyond that. And then on the flip side, it's just like, okay, well in sports, like if you play, any kind of sport, esport or physical sport, it's the people at the highest levels that command all of the attention as well as all of the dollar value, right? So in that way, ranked rewards is kind of in a weird spot. And if you've been on this channel, you know that I've been very bullish on both. I've been very bullish on both tournaments as well as potentially brawls in the future. So I do feel like there will be a lot of value that goes towards the top there. But ranked rewards is something that is, well, it's something that's kind of like in between or like really undefined because it's competitive play, but it's not really like it's not really at that level. And also, it's not KYC, so you're not going to get the kind of money that we're expecting to come in, at least not yet. Now, that may change in the future, and I'm hoping that it does. And I'm very bullish on things potentially changing in the future, but we're digressing very, very far away. Now, ultimately, I don't play in bronze anymore. And so I honestly cannot answer the question of whether or not it is a good experience to play in bronze. I do believe, and I know Matt even discussed it here, that the new player experience needs to be addressed, and they have not addressed it for a long time for a decent reason, right? Because if you think about it, all of the changes that have come through, and I guess he answered it on this one. If you think about all the changes that have come through, just imagine somebody who joined the game 6 months ago and is like, wait, okay, so now we're receiving a different crypto, and now I can get more chests, but I have to have like focus points and I have to own the card. Like it's been a lot of changes, and so I maintain that I think the team is still trying to tweak out the game economy before they turn on the burners for like a marketing effort, right? So I know it sucks for all of us who've been here for the last 8 months and maybe even 10 months since the beginning of the year, because it's like we want more players in the game. We want the game to grow. We want our friends who we tell about the game to come in and be like, oh, this is something that I not only enjoy, but I'm willing to spend money on, right? Not in like a pyramid scheme way, but it's like this. Obviously, if you're watching these videos, you have some kind of affinity for the game. So it's like we want other people to be able to share that experience, and they may not be diving deep as deep as we are, and you do have to scratch a significant amount of the surface in order to really get it, right? To really get both the game from an investment standpoint, from a gameplay standpoint, from a gameplay meta standpoint, from just a game ecosystem and economy standpoint. Like there's so many elements of this. When many of us who probably got in during the bull run last year, we were in it. We were studying and we were like exploring projects, whereas now people are much more frugal with their money, as they should be based on the global macro economy, right? And so they may not wanting to be spending time exploring games as potential investments, but that's where like the new player experience really comes in. So this video has been all over the place, but to give you, or to wrap it up, I'm not opposed to this, and I am curious to see how this is discussed in the upcoming town hall. And whenever this goes live, I will be curious to see how the team, or not the team, but the community ends up voting on it. Now, what I want to do is, this channel is really just a place for discussion where I can connect with you guys. So I want to know, how are you feeling about this? Because as of now, I am probably going to vote for it. But again, I want to be very upfront with my biases and very upfront with my blind spots. I'm playing in gold with a non-maxed gold deck. I have not played in bronze since last year, or since whenever Chaos Legion came out, as I bought the packs to level up my deck at that point. So for people who are playing in bronze, people who are playing in silver, how are you viewing this? Is this something that you think will be beneficial to you in the short, medium, long run? Is this something that you think will be good or bad for bots, and kind of like limiting the amount of cards? I just want to get the pulse on where the community is at, because again, I've been reading a lot through Discord, but with travel and stuff, it's just been really whenever I get tagged or whenever I get a chance to go in and catch up on stuff. So your opinion, meaning the people who are here on YouTube and that I chat with like 3 times a week, I want to understand where you're coming from. And it's not a matter of convince me one way or another, but I think that there's a really large amount of, there's really smart people in this community, which I appreciate, and I want to get your opinion on anything before I take any kind of action. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I will catch you all in the next video, and I will see you around the game. Take care.